Hello and welcome back, beautiful soul, to yet another one of my favorite people, Jean Dorff. This is a permission to follow your inner GPS, your inner guided purpose soul path. I am your host, Angel Lady Terry Marie, and Jean is fanatical in helping and supporting people to reach their true potential in dance and in life. He is a passionate dance coach who challenges and motivates you to perform at your best. His belief in the unity of body, mind, and soul, and the studies of martial arts and dance led him to develop a unique coaching principles that resulted in the Dorff Inner Strength Method. And how appropriate, because this is 2019, Body, Mind, and Spirit Year, the 3. Hello and welcome, my friend. It's been too long.
I know, but we have been in contact one way or another.
We have, yes, we have. So please tell us more about you and what it is you do.
Well, I think you said it all. I mean, well, my name is Jean Dorff. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, which is in Europe. If you don't know that, thank you for having me on your show. I see you doing really well, and yeah, I like to call myself a dancer and a spiritual coach, which really go nicely hand in hand, I must say. And I feel very blessed by the fact that I do this full time. So I can show up in the way I hope I was meant to be shown up, if that's good English. And so that's what I do.
Perfectly good enough English, yes. But it wasn't always so. If memory serves, when we met years ago in San Diego at a conference, well, met face-to-face anyway, because we'd already known each other a little bit by then. Right. You used to be in corporate, didn't you, in a corporate environment?
Yep. Yeah, I worked, I've done many jobs, but I worked for a long time in corporate. I was pretty successful there to the measurements of the corporate world, so to speak.
Yes.
They measure it by title and salary. And so by those measurements, I was doing reasonable. And I don't want to be any condescended or something like that. If someone chooses to be that their career path, I would love to support them too. And I was one of them for the longest time. Alongside, I've always been in coaching sporters, dancers, and so on. But at some point in time, the calling to do something else in life was too big. And there was literally no logic against, actually, as everything was against me. The normal things were against me. But I decided to do it anyhow. So the rest is kind of history.
That's the short version.
that is the short version.
What was the final piece that actually said, okay, I've got to change this. I've got to get out of corporate. I've got to start living more of what it is you felt called to do?
I think, to be honest, all the experiences I had throughout my life, including the corporate life, was necessary to bring me to a point where I could do other things in life. For a long time, I've always operated from the viewpoint that if you don't are in life to serve other people, then what's the point altogether? And although I worked for a company that I still, have a warm heart for, especially for the services and products that they deliver, I felt it was time to do something else and to serve people in a different way. And so I also must say that I saw things in the corporate world that actually did not work very well for me. And being now on the other side, I must honestly say that I don't think it worked for a lot of other people either. It's really hard for other people to see it. It's like when you swim in the ocean, it's really hard to see the water.
Yes, it absolutely is. When you're
Yes,
in the water, it's hard to see the whole picture.
yes.
So,
So
how did you get started in dance, period?
um,
Because this has not been, it wasn't just when you left corporate, was it?
no, as a young boy, I actually always liked dancing. To be honest, I was really crazy about Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. I could watch those movies forever, and I've seen them all multiple times. Strangely enough, I was kind of pushed into a martial arts career, and I started there when I was 7. And this is, one of the things that I believe God led me into live a remarkable life, because I found out that I was actually very talented in martial arts, and so I reached a literally top level. But somewhere, and it's easier to define afterwards, somewhere it then didn't feel quite right either. And this is where we sometimes go into, is where we sometimes are really good at something, but at the same time you feel that you are not at the right place,
Mm-hmm.
and the world likes to let us believe that if you're successful at something, then you're probably at the right place. Well, I guess that's often so, but in my case that was not the case. And then fate, fate, brought me on the dance floor, just a simple party. And I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't I start to do dancing before? So I took some formal dance classes, and I probably was in my late 20s already, and I just found it. And everyone told me at that point, when I said I wanted to pursue a dance career, that it's too late. Well, Jean never let himself be confined by any natural thing, so he didn't listen. I was not hindered by any knowledge, so that helps a lot, and that helps a lot often. So me and my dance partner, we decided to pursue a dance career, and we did reasonable well. I must admit that somewhere inside me sometimes go back to, what if I would start at 7 as a dancer? Would I have had a different dance career? Maybe so, but we can turn back time in that perspective.
No,
So
and by starting when you did, you actually, this is what I'm getting a sense of, because you started late for a dancer,
yep.
you are now able to relate to, or some of your clients are able to relate to you because they may not have gotten started until later in life, and bringing it in as part of a whole rather than something else maybe.
That's exactly right, Terry. So if I fast forward, then a lot of my coaching is about, there's no fixed point in time when you should start or stop to do something. I'm 58 now. I'm still pounding that floor, and yeah, it's just what it is. I mean, we often measure things about titles like world champions and stuff like that, but I know champions are very nice and very happy, but I also know world champions like I was myself, and I was not so happy. So those things, if they come together, it sounds all great, and they make perfect stories in books and movies. But life is not always like that. So that's definitely one thing that I had from it. The other thing is, since I was already a very, proficient martial artist, I had a lot of mental skills, and one of my teachers actually recognized that in me and asked me to teach alongside of him, which of course my answer was, wow, I teach dance with you, alongside you, I don't even know left from right. So, but he said, no, I don't want you for your dance skills, I want you for your mental skills. So very quickly I became a mental coach in dancing, which was, and still is actually very rare, not so common. Specialized mental coaches in that area. And I developed myself through it. I like to call it more, how to emotionally express you than just pure mental coaching. We can talk about that for hours too, by the way. But so yeah, I've always been drawn into teaching and coaching, and it kind of was perfect in that way. Now my boyish heart still wants to be on the competition floor and dance among the young crowd. I still want that, to be honest. But hey, man, we always have something in ourselves where we can go back to. Some people say it's delusional. I can tell you, Tara Marie, that dream, and it might be a little bit delusional to dance among 30-year-old, 20 years old on a competitive dance floor on these big arenas. But it actually drives me almost daily to become the best coach possible. So, you know.
I would think wanting to, or not wanting to, but well, yes, wanting to, but also having that inner drive, that inner passion to be on the dance floor actually helps you to relate to and your clients to relate to you, because it's not like it's over. You say you're 58, but 58 these days is not the same as our fathers and our grandfathers. It is a whole different playing field in so many different arenas.
Oh yeah, that's. I think you're right on that account too. So I'm just always very open in what I want, what I dream about, and what I do with it and about it. And so if you get fixated on that one thing, hey, I want to be, let's say, world champion in dancing, then maybe it becomes a stopper. If you like to see it a little bit more open and broad and listen to what that dream actually is trying to tell you, then it can be way more powerful. And so I think what we do is trying to interpret our dreams, where I always try to teach people, maybe the dream is powerful enough that it can tell you what needs to be done. And maybe you
Yes.
should try to listen and understand what that message is, instead of immediately saying, oh, it's red, so it has to be red. Um, no, maybe it's something else. And so I don't say that I know it all, but that's how I use my dreams and my passions.
Well, you are intuitive, and so, and what I always found and still do find fascinating is how you are blending the mental coaching with the physical dance piece, because I can see where coaches do one or the other, but bringing it together, that's unique.
I don't know whether it's so unique, Terry Marie. Actually, I often wonder why it is unique, if it is unique at all, because I do believe that at least on this earth where you and I wander around and other people, we are put here in a body and mind. It's not only the body, so, and it's not only the mind or only the spirit. So there might be other realms where it will be only the body or only the mind or only the spirit. But the matter of fact is, we are here on earth with a purpose, and the purpose is to experience a full integrated body and mind.
Yes.
In our language, we have you and I have talked about these things, but in our language, and you see this around us, people start to split these things up. We get an almost over appreciation of either one or the other, where you and I both, by the way, can teach people that if you're not, pretty okay in your mind, I can make you do some bodily activities and your mind will shift with you, or the other way around. Your body is not entirely working for you. Let me help you a little bit and change some things in your mind, and it will help there too. So I do understand that when we talk, it's a little bit easier to separate them out. But if you or I ask our clients, can you point me where your mind is? Well, at best, they point where their brains are. But everyone
Yes.
immediately knows, like, I don't think that's right. Your mind is somewhere else. By the way, most people get completely crazy if I tell them that their mind is not them, right? That's not you. These are all instruments that, are given to us to experience the world around us. And so that's a little bit what I do. Dancers know this by nature often very well, very in tune with their body, and sometimes a little bit less with their mind, but they are pretty balanced. And and that's what I started to do as a martial artist and as a dancer. I didn't even know why I brought to this path. I often gave up on the question why. I just know it is. It has been asked of me to
Yeah.
do. So
Sometimes the why doesn't help us, And I think that's one of the most difficult concepts because, and I can only speak for myself in this particular instance, is I was taught to control my emotions, my actions, what I say, when I say, how I say it, and to whom I say it, and it's like, holy smokes. So if you're trying to control everything, it's very different than managing things. And
Definitely true.
to be able to manage, and the mind, we're taught that it's right here, and that's ego conscious or conscious mind ego chitter chatter, and that's not anything about intuition at all. How did you transition from the corporate world to what you're doing? And yes, you had a calling and you felt that you needed to change, but how did you actually do the transition piece?
Well, on one hand, it was not an easy transition because in corporate you need a few skills, or at least you think you need a few skills to survive, right? I think I've always been a little bit an oddball in the corporate world by also helping and coaching and managing people in a slightly different way. Not to be unique or anything. It's just what it is, and it
Mm-hmm.
brought me in a more strategic places of the corporate world where I've been asked to think long term and do strategic research. So I very much felt also at home in the corporate world. So the switch was not so big, but the focus of the results were not what I like to see. In the end of the day, all corporates are focused on profit.
Mm-hmm.
And although the intentions and the mission statements and the visions often are saying something different, I know this as a corporate director that in the end of the day we need to make our quarters, right? And we need to make them in hard numbers. And I've been a manager like that. And I'm not, money is not a bad thing per se. Money is just a form of energy. And it depends on how we use it, whether it's right or wrong. So this is not a judgment or whether that's right or wrong.
No, absolutely not. And money is one of the strongest what's the
Absolutely.
word? Driving factors, or it's a big part of how this earth, this realm works. And so to not have very much
Yeah,
is not a good thing.
it, it's very right. But in a way, I have a contract. I had a contract with the company and the companies that I work for, and I want to honor that contract. And I felt that from the way how I started to see life, I would not fully be in line what they expected from their employee, in this case me. So one of the things is that the only way for us to win in that corporate setting is actually to win over competition. But ask me questions like, okay, so I would win if I put other people out of business. That would be a big win.
Yes. And
And
that is kind of opposite of what we prefer, to work from that space of spirituality where there
that's
is
right.
balance and there's no competition per se. Because if you were
That's
the
exactly.
only person doing mental and dance coaching and someone was not attracted to you or they didn't resonate, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. So I knew, consciously and intuitively that I would not be the best employee for them just because I was started to operate from another notion. And so although I coach people to become the best dancers they are, which is often in a competitive arena, strange as that is, it is still slightly different than when that's done in a corporate arena. And I still coach, by the way, corporate executives as well.
I'm well aware of that. And so it's really interesting that you being able to take what you learned, because without the corporate background, you may not have been able to take what you're doing now back into or introduce it into the corporate world to help change, not change the culture so much, but to hopefully enrich it so that it is more robust and more well-rounded. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I know that one of my business coaches, she always tried to get me more into corporate coaching. For some reason, Terry Marie, I don't want it. I know I probably could make a lot more money in business if I go into business coaching, maybe. But there is no, the attraction actually is kind of almost gone. If I meet someone from corporate world and they want to work with me and I think it's a good fit, I would still work with them. But I have people now from all walks of life. Often actually they start their own company when they have worked with me, strange as that it is. Often coming from a different principle. Um, but life is as it is, and if I wanted to, if I wanted to stay in corporate, I probably would have. Um, but
Well, I'm sure all of your dancing clients are very glad that you did not.
well, I don't know about that.
Well, I have a
Yeah,
sneaking suspicion.
we have to ask. But if I think about it, it's about 50-50. I think I work with 50% that are people that I work with are dance clients, but 50% are people from all different kind of walks of life and all over the world. So I don't know how these things happen, and I'm very worried about it. Do I have enough clients next month or not? But for some reason, they're always there. Do
Especially when you, the general you, take into consideration, if you follow your path, if you follow the next steps that are given to you and do your part, it unfolds one way or another. It just does. And when we sidestep, and I get to, recalibrate myself at a time or two, is like, okay, so I've always had enough and I've always had a little bit more than enough, and now I have more than enough. Thank you. So am I going to start freaking out? I said, no. And you just turn it around. I love that you've been able to kind of integrate and blend, the different parts of coaching into one and still able to do both sides, because there are people who are definitely attracted to your energy and your way who don't really want to do anything for dancing, but the way you combine movement, the energy of the movement, and what you do is really very different, and I love it.
Well, thank you. And I always thought that they were attracted because of my beauty, but
Well, okay, that too.
well,
I wasn't
to your
going to go there.
to your listeners, I have to say it sounds like I don't struggle at all, but as I'm only human, right? So yeah, leaving corporate business and believe me, all you listeners there, it financially there was a huge hit, and it still is. You just make so much more money in the corporate world, and there are definitely days that I think, oh man, let me go back there and let me not have the worries about whether I have a new customer or whether I have enough money even to pay off my mortgage and stuff like that, or to fly to my kids. If you know my life story, most people know that my kids live on the other side of the world, and sometimes I just have these very lofty dreams. If I would have a private jet, I could fly to them whenever I want, or could fly them over. So don't think that, we sometimes are called spiritual teachers, that we don't have normal earthly wishes of, some wealth and richness, because I do, and I'm not ashamed of it. I just try not to make that my main goal. What I do know, and you and I have been talking through this when we were with Adam Urbensky, is if we're too poor to help ourselves, we can certainly don't help anyone else. So
Exactly.
so that's the other side. So it is often a comment from people that want to have our help. You probably have experienced the same, and they always kind of are surprised if they hear that we actually ask money for our service. Like, wow, you do, and then for some strange reason, people think that if you do some services in the world, that you do it for free, but they have no problem paying $5 for a cup of coffee with a cost price for less than 10 cents. So that for me is like, wow, man, don't you think we should make a shift in? I'm not saying that they have to make me all super rich, but it's that's for me has always been. You know, even when I talk to Adam nowadays, he says, "Wow, Jean, you're still struggling. How is that possible?" I said, "I don't know. I'm still ashamed to ask a lot for my service. I seriously am. You know, and I know it's I'm not doing bad, by the way, Terry Marie,
Oh,
but
no. Yeah, because when we step into the spiritual side of things and when people connect with that, it's like, it's your gift, so you should give it away. And how I help a lot of people shift that, and I said, okay, so by that same token, you're really good at what you do. Go into your boss and say, hey, I don't need to be paid this month because I'm really good at what I do. And they go, oh, is that
yeah.
okay? So just because I'm really good at this doesn't mean that I haven't been practicing for 20 years before I went full time, right?
Well, that's right. So, but you know, luckily I can tell people also a lot about how I overcame the shame of
Mm-hmm.
asking money for your services and stuff like that. You know, so you know, I think most of the coaches went through all that. I know for a fact that you did because you and I kind of started at the same time. We both had the same questions to Mr. Adam Urbensky. Now, Mr. Adam Bensky, I still am in good contact with him. He moved on to only coaching very high rolling customers. I don't fit in that category anymore.
Neither do I. And yet, without having met him and worked with him, neither one of us would be where we are now. And we certainly would not have met because our worlds, I remember
Yeah.
the one I was just getting started with teaching online, and you popped into one of the free webinars, and I asked you how you liked it, and you said, well, it was different.
Wow.
That was a long time ago. My gosh.
Well, let me switch the tables a little bit. This is how I met Terry Marie. You actually sent me a message. Would you be willing to listen to one of my, first webinars? And I want you, Jean, to focus more on the content and how I constructed the story. Well, I listened with full amazement and the knowledge you had. I listened actually with more amazement, like, wow, there are actually people coming to listen to a lady that calls herself the angel lady. I said, you can actually have a business with talking to angels. I said, it surprised me. So I tell your story a lot. If some people say, in a good way. In a good way, if I mock your story, people would say, "Wow, did people pay money for it?" I said, has nothing to do with paying money for it. You have to see if people are served well by what Terry Marie is doing. That's nothing to do whether I believe it or not. That's something to do with are the people very well served and are they in the end following a better path than they did before? And they all did. So I have experienced that as well. So it was for me one of these things to make me believe in myself also stronger.
Oh, good.
Man, if there is someone that believes in an angel lady, there must be at least someone who believes in a full body and mind and soul connection to be on the dance floor and in the world.
And not to take away from you at all, thank you very much for sharing that. My clients and my friends are the ones who gave me that name. It wasn't, oh, I'm just going to call myself this. And it took 3 years before I would even stop cringing a little bit when somebody said that. It's like, it was too big. And every once in a while, it's still too big. It's still too heavy. Most of the time, like about 85, 90%, I'm okay with it. And on certain days, it's like, I give it back. I just say, yeah, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah. No.
And they're just quiet, and they just say, well, let her calm down, and she'll be back.
Yeah, no, and it's a true story that I tell your story quite often. I think it's a beautiful story, by the way,
Thank
Terry
you.
Marie. And if it comes to naming, I call the method that I use the Dorff inner strength method. I didn't come up with that name myself. I always like the term inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so much with the word method, and I definitely don't have a lot with my own name in it. But working through podcasts or through webinars and what have you not with Adam Urbanski, actually a group of people in my mastermind group said, no, I think it's perfectly fine to call it Dorff inner strength method. It makes it more unique. It is a method, so that makes it more teachable, and so it ended up in being in my book, which I hope we can talk about a little bit as well.
We do have a little more time, so please tell us about your book, and very definitely tell our listeners how they can connect with you. That's so important, because you are so amazing.
Well, thank you for that. Well, I always had a calling to write my story in a book, and it's not a pretty story, but at the same time, it's a story that I hope other people can learn from and get. So it's a story about a boy, which is me, who was abused since he was 7 until he was 12 by the same man. After that, there were other things like domestic violence and other abuses in that story too. That actually took me way out of my body. So that's where the body and mind spirit came in a lot. I started to hate the world and everything that was in it, and most of all, I started to hate myself. But around the age of 17, which is, I guess, pretty young still, I also found that that was not the way how to, rule my own life. That was not the way to go through life. I just felt it. There was nothing to do with wisdom or something like that. I literally felt one day that I had to do it differently, and that hate was something that only would take me in a path that was not something that I wanted to live. And unfortunately, I must say that I have siblings who never came to that point and actually started to have a much different life than I had, who was given that insight, which gave me 2 lessons, right? First of all, I can teach people now that insight, but also I want to tell people something that you do too, is that source where that insight is coming from. You don't always need a teacher like you or me to get access to that source. Everyone has access to that source.
Yes.
Great if you want to pay me to help you with that. But, honestly, if you want to have access to those sources, they are there. They are there from the beginning of this world and the beginning of this universe. And that gave me truly an insight. Just to make it easy, I call it God, but if you want to call it something else, that's fine for me too. Right? So that was one of the story. What I learned actually through that, if you went through a severe abuse like I did too, you need some points and some things in your life that helps you to move yourself forward. Because if you're an abuse victim, you start to settle quickly down for just being healthy and kind of happy. So you don't want to take out of life what's there to take out of. So, and I think a passion, in my case, that's dancing. But if it's knitting or if it's dog or kitties or whatever it is, that's all fine. Any passion that can work and is positive can work for you to help you lead a life of passion and purpose. And that's actually what I wrote in my book. That's what my book is about. It makes a case for attention for, I think, one of the biggest evil in the world still, and that is the abuse of women and children.
Yes.
And I say that specifically, not that I don't think that abuse of men is not bad, but unfortunately it's 90% of the men who are doing this. And that means that we have to make an awareness and a conscious shift for this to change. I am in life to help victims go through it, but I'm more in life to help people to make that shift. If we start to think a little bit less weird of touching each other, loving each other, and don't immediately equate that with weird things like we see in porn, life would be a lot different. By understanding your own body and loving your own body and mind more, you will have a lot more respect, not only for yourself, but also for other people. And that by itself will make a lot of change. We will always have predators in the world, and the predators will always
Yes.
do bad things. That I cannot do a lot about, but all the other people who often also were tormented by weird things and therefore did some weird things in their life, you know, they can definitely be helped. And we, you included, we have to make that conscious shift. And that
I
will
agree.
ultimately, you know,
I agree.
hopefully.
I am also an abuse survivor and thriver. So I get it.
I remember that.
And please tell our listeners and our viewers the name or the title of your book and where they can find it and where they can connect with you also. Okay, I think
Yeah.
we kind of
So the title of my book is,
go.
yeah. Yeah. The title of my book is Broken Silence, Living a Life of Purpose and Passion. You know, after sexual abuse, a dancer story. That's a long title. But if you type in Broken Silence by Jean Dorff, you typically find it. At this point in time, you can only buy it through Amazon.com, which I'm proudly to say it has been for a few weeks already the bestseller in most English-speaking countries, Australia, Canada, the UK, and the United States, in the category of self-help and memoir. So that's a great thing. Um, but yeah, I would love for you, people and listeners, to buy the book. Proceeds, by the way, go to my nonprofit, which is a dancers movement to stop sexual abuse. You can find me on www.jeandorff, Jean Dorff, DORFF.com. So www.jeandorff.com. That's the easiest way to connect to me. If not, find me on Facebook, just under Jean Dorff. There are not so many people. You write it as Jean Dorff, but you say French. It's French. I can help
Yeah,
it.
it's
Jean Dorff.
spelled Jean, y'all, but it's pronounced Jean. And if you're having a little, trouble finding him, you can pop a message to me and say, "Hey, I want to talk to that really handsome dancer guy," and I'll connect y'all, okay? So it's jeandorff.com and Jean Dorff on Facebook, and the book title on Amazon is Broken Silence. Wow.
That's right. That's right.
Will you come back another time and we can unpack some more of this?
I would love to. I would love to tell you a little bit more about
Yes.
the Dorff Inner Strength Method.
Yes.
And I think that would be awesome. And maybe I can give you also some insight how those, sources that you and I sometimes talk about, both from a different place, sometimes talk to us, and how they bring a message to the world through us. So, Terry and Marie and I, we are just mere instruments in this bigger scheme of things. We don't know where that leads us to, but it's all beautiful,
It is. It is. Thank you so much for taking time out of your life and your schedule. I really enjoy connecting with you, and I will definitely, we will definitely have you back at some point. So please, viewers, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and share this. You never know what it's going to touch in your life or in someone else's. And please stop by angeldreamteam.com and get your free PDF on how to become a mover and shaker of your reality. So until next time, remember, you are loved and treasured beyond measure. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste. Bye-bye.